Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we're going to be looking at the King of Derp, the KV2, although that title is now contested by the OI, so, you know, and the other Japanese heavies, but I still think that the KV2 is possibly worthy of wearing the crown, definitely. Now, it's not for everybody. I quite like this tank. I'm surprised I haven't reviewed it already. Somebody's asked me to review it, and like I said, you know, I was very surprised I haven't done it already. I've done through the KV1, I think it was. This is very early on. I've got to do addendums to them with the new module and armor viewer, but I've done that way, KV85 IS up to the IS3. And yeah, the KV2 kind of sits in an odd place on its own. Now, you get to it through the KV1, as you know, with the KV1S, the T150. But the KV2 just sort of sits out here on its own and actually leads into artillery, and then, you know, back down into the traditional artillery line. Well, say traditional, you know, the normal one. Excuse me. Now, it does also lead up to the T150, and if you are thinking about going down that line, or, you know, going this way, these two use a few of the same parts, the engine namely, and the top, well, one of the top guns on the KV2 is 107mm Zis 6, I think it is. Yep, there you go. And it's the same one that's on the T150. So if you've been through the T150, this will be a bit cheaper. If you come through the KV2 to the T150 upgrades will be cheaper. And you will more than likely have a lot of fun in the KV2. Now, let's have a look at the modules. Well, you start off with 122mm U11 howitzer, which is one of the guns that's on the KV1, so you'll probably be familiar with it if you went through it, or you may have just skipped that one and moved on to one of the guns higher up, but it is a little bit painful. 5.5 rounds a minute, 61 pen, 450 damage. The damage isn't bad, and you probably splash for about maybe 200, so it's not too savage. 140 on your premium ammo with 370 penetration. Now, you only have 16 degrees of hull traverse and 14 of turret traverse. Neither of those are going to get much better. With that gun, you can make it work. You will probably have to fire the odd heat round, I think, of the premium ammunition on that, if I remember rightly. But yeah, it is a little painful. It's not too bad in tier 6 matches, but when you get into tier 7 and 8, it can be a bit tricky. The next one you'll be able to upgrade is this package, which is the 152mm M10, which is the big gun that you want. Now, with that one, it is a very, very slow 2.5 rounds a minute, and your standard ammo, armor piercing, 110 penetration, which again in tier 6 is more than enough to suffice with 700 damage. Your premium ammunition is 136 pen, 700 damage. But it's the HE on the end that we're interested in. Very, very high penetration for HE rounds, 86 pen with a whopping 910 damage down at tier 6, which is phenomenal. Aiming time, however, is not, well, it is in one way, it's 4 seconds, and accuracy is artillery worthy at 0.6, which is one of the most inaccurate guns on an actual tank, if not the most inaccurate on a tank, I think it is. So, yeah, quite inaccurate, although you do have the Hand of Stalin, which does occasionally guide your shells to its target. Turret armor on both of the turrets is 75 on the front and sides and 70 on the rear, but when you've got that one, you can then obviously upgrade to this, which will be a bit cheaper, which is the new turret and track. So you get 18 on your hull traverse, 16 on your turret, so it does go up by 2 degrees, and your view range increases to 330 from 320, so a massive 10 meters on there as well. But then again, these Russian tanks aren't known for their view ranges. Your next upgrade basically upgrades your engine, so you go from 500 to 600 horsepower. It does make a bit of a difference, but not a massive amount of difference, and it is a bit sluggish. It's not got a bad top speed, but it can be a bit sluggish. Now, the other gun you can put on is the 107mm Zis 6, but, you know, it will work with this tank. It will change the way that it plays a lot, but I would say it possibly doesn't suit this tank in a way, and you are better suited to using that on the T150. So if you are wanting to use that gun, just get the T150. You'd get a slight decrease in rate of fire on the T150. Let's just check what it is when I can get the right tank. There we go. 5.88 as opposed to, I think it was at 6.1. Yeah, so a very slight decrease in rate of fire. Same aiming time, 3.4 seconds on the T150 and on this, and same accuracy, which is pretty poor at 0.45, and the aiming time is not very good either, especially for a 107mm gun. But you get 167 pen and 300 damage for your standard rounds, 219 and 300 for your premium, 54, 360 for your HE. But again, like I say, you know, you can use it on there, and I have seen people do very well with that gun, but it kind of seems a bit redundant because the T150 can do it better, because it's got a better turret on it, and it's more manoeuvrable, and it's got a better upper plate as well, and it just seems to be more suited for that gun. So that's why I go for the 152mm derp gun. And again, the 86 penetration, you know, you can pen the side. I've penned the side of a Tiger, I've penned the side of a Tiger's turret, and you know, I've done a whopping amount of damage. But then again, even if you don't pen and it's just splash, you're hitting for like 350 splash damage. So it's still well worth it, because even with that, with the splash damage, you're still doing more on average than you are with the 107mm. You've just obviously got the very massively decreased accuracy and rate of fire. Supplies wise, excuse me, 725 for your armor piercing. I only carry 4,800 for your, well, they're a sort of premium armor piercing, and I only carry 4 of those, and I basically just fire HE, because again, you can splash for 350 damage, so it's well worth it, in my opinion anyway. You might not agree, but it's 810 for your HE. But I just feel that if you're going to have a KV2 and you're not using this gun, you kind of might as well not bother. Equipment, well, I've got the gun laying drive. You can't have a vertical stabilizer, and it's just trying to get the aiming time down. A gun rammer to try and increase the rate of fire, and vents to try and increase everything else. Consumables, well, I've got standard repair kit, standard first aid kit, but I have got a food item on there again to try and improve the aiming time and the reload. And skills, well, I did have this a while back, and I sold it to get something else so I could fund sort of an upgrade, you know, to a higher tier, and I wish I hadn't. And the crew moved on to something else, so my crew are being built up again. But I've got Sixth Sense. Brothers in Arms is very useful on this tank, because again, increases aiming time, well, sort of decreases, increases your reload speed, when I can get my words out properly. And, you know, just everything else around the tank. It is sluggish. It, you know, it does have a slow turret traverse, a slow hull traverse. Repairs, track repairs, I would say, definitely clutch braking, possibly off-road driving, because it's not got very good terrain resistance, as we'll find out in a minute. Situational awareness, that sort of thing, and possibly armourer, because you really, when your gun gets damaged in this, it is horrific, absolutely horrific. You'll be lucky to hit something, well, right next to it. It's really bad. But yeah, that sort of stuff. Pretty much basic heavy tank skills, but you do want the odd other thing in there as well, like I say, with the you know, Brothers in Arms, with the armourer, that sort of thing. Now, engine wise, well, it's a big old engine like it is in a lot of these KVs, so you've got a big block at the back and then 2 smaller, thinner blocks that basically stretch almost to the front of the tank on one side and sort of nearly, well, just over halfway down on the other side. 600 horsepower engine with 11.34 horsepower per ton power to weight ratio, which isn't brilliant, but it you know, it can get along fairly well. Like I say, you probably won't reach 35 kilometers an hour, which is its top speed, unless you're going downhill, but you can get up to 30 on good ground. It just takes a while getting there. Reverse speed's lacking a little bit though, at 11 kilometers an hour, and a 15% chance of fire. Now, that is a risk that I take, having the food item instead of fire extinguisher. Touch wood, so far I have been quite lucky in this, and I think I've only regretted it once, so that's down to choice. You know, that's really up to you. But like I say, I'm willing to take that risk. Excuse me again. Now, reload time, 24 seconds. I have got that down quite a bit. I can't remember quite what to, but we'll see it in the clips anyway. Elevation is very poor at 12 degrees, and depression isn't too savage at 7 degrees. It's a lot better than a lot of the other Soviet vehicles. Tracks are fairly solid, there's no gaps in between them. Poor terrain resistances though, 1.4, 1.6 and 2.8. Very large turret. We've already covered the view range and what have you. The radio is actually down in the left hand side of the hull, or the right as we're looking at it, which is I think slightly different to the other KVs. And ammunition, we've got one that runs along the hull floor, which is a fairly tricky one to hit, but your main ones are in the back of the turret, just on the overhang. And I think they're in the same place on the first turret. The difference is that this one's flat on the back and that one is angled on the back. But other than that, armour wise, you know, it's the same. But yeah, that's where they are. So the overhang on the back of the turret, that's where you want to try and be hitting it if you want to damage the ammo rack. Crew members, we've got 2 in the front, driver and I'm assuming radio operator. And then up in the top you've got the commander, the gunner and I think 2 loaders as well. Armour wise, well, we've had the basic figures. I think it was it 75 for the front of the turret? Yep. In fact it's the same all round. So the front is 75 turret and hull, 75 on the sides turret and hull, and 70 on the rear, and that's for both the turret and the hull. Excuse me, my throat's still not back to normal and I do apologise. As you can see, some of the figures are not too bad, but let's have a look at them in more detail. Well, 1 to 20 is your tracks, which obviously do act as a bit of spaced armour. 21 to 30, which is part, I mean, it's not your gun mantle, it's sort of the base of the gun, maybe the front of the breech possibly, I'm not entirely sure, it could be part of the recoil system, I'm not really an expert with that. The engine deck as well, the floor at the rear of the hull, and a small strip just on the overhang on the back side there as well. 31 to 50, well that's the front of the engine deck, the whole top of the turret, and that little bit on the overhang, the sort of base of the turret there. The upper plate, and I think that's about it. So yeah, do beware, you know, it's a big flat turret top, it's a big flat engine deck. RT do like to take pot shots at you. 51 to 70, well, that's your driver's hatch and machine gun port on the front. The gun itself, the whole rear of the turret, and basically the whole rear of the tank, bar that strip that we've already covered. 71 to 90 is, well, as you can see, pretty much the sides of the tank, sides of the turret. The strip that the driver's hatch and machine gun port sit in there, as you can see, and also the lower front plates, both of them, because it is separated slightly into 2. And then 90 to 120, well, I don't have an exact figure, but that's basically gun mantle, the front of the gun, and that thin strip across the front. I seem to remember somewhere it is about 95, something like that, but I could be completely wrong on that, so don't quote me. Now, for the new players, hopefully you'll have sort of picked up the fundamentals of angling and side scraping from the KV1. It is the same in this, although it is more important, and you are probably going to have to stay a bit further back and side scrape more than sit there angling, because you are now tier 6 and will be seeing up to tier 8, so they will have no problem punching through your armour. But enough for me, let's get into the match and see how it actually plays. Right, so here we are for the first of the replays. It's a tier 6 match, so I'm top tier and it's on port and it's a team destruction. Now, when you're top tier in this, like I say, I nearly always, well, no, I always fire high explosive, what am I on about? When you are top tier, you can afford to be more aggressive. You've got to be aware of, you know, what tanks are in the match, what can pen you, you know, that sort of thing, like you do with a lot of tanks. But if you angle this properly, or you side scrape properly, it's a very good side scraping tank, especially when top tier, because your side armour is, you know, it's 75mm, which is really good for the tier. So, you know, you can do that. Now, with its long reload, yes, it does a massive amount of damage per shot, especially if you penetrate, but it does have a very long reload. So contrary to what I'm doing here, speeding off at the front, you can do this, but you really do need to make sure you've got somebody behind you as best you can. I mean, you know, you can't always, I say you can't always, virtually never able to trust the teammates in random battle, because most of the time they will leave you to die, but occasionally do get them. But yeah, you are best off trying to make sure you are with other tanks as much as possible, even when you are top tier, because, you know, 24 seconds reload is a long time and a lot can happen in 24 seconds. You know, some of these tier 6s, you're talking maybe 6-second reloads. Some of them are even, you know, more than that. Like, look at the Boilermaker, for instance, that's less than 4 seconds of reload. So you know, you miss the Boilermaker, in 24 seconds it can make quite a mess of you. So that's something you'd have to bear in mind. Now the M3 Lee was, it almost felt like a waste of a shell, but damage is damage. But yeah, the reason you really need those other people with you is for that. You know, I'm reloading, they're taking the attention of the enemy tanks that are there. If you're on your own, they will generally just rush you, circle you, etc. You're done for. And it is very difficult to hold the choke point on your own with this. Although, well, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, that was a good hit on that guy. That was a very good hit. It nearly ammo racked him. But yeah, it isn't easy to hold the choke point in one of these. When you're top tier, it's not too bad because people are that shit scared of these half the time that they just don't want to take a hit. And even when you're fired and you're reloading, there's always that risk. And in the back of the mind, well, what if I don't quite make it through there? You know, that sort of thing. When you're not top tier, oh, hang on, he's full health. Can I hit him in pen? Yes, I can. And that's why I like this gun. For things like that, especially, you know, when you can just pop around a corner and just boom and just nuke a tank from full health. It is quite funny. But yeah, when you're not top tier, you do want to play this a lot more cautiously. You want to stay back and think of yourself as a direct line of sight artillery. Let everybody else spot for you, and even though you'll probably miss quite a lot, it's got quite a large splash area. In fact, that is something I did forget to mention in the garage. I do apologise. In fact, I think I'm going to pause it there. I'm going to go back and have a look and see what it actually is. Through the magic of editing, it's 3.6 meters. So there you go. So even if you do stay back out of hopefully view range, you know, but you're well within render range of seeing the enemy tanks, even though you miss with 3.6 meters, if they bunch together, say, I don't know, the corner, you know, the top northeastern corner on Al Haloof, somewhere like that, there's a good chance you're going to splash damage one or two of them anyway, maybe knock the tracks off, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's, you know, I've had some really good results in tier 8 matches in this. I've not got any now. I think I might have possibly had one or two in previous videos, probably random destruction, where I've, you know, got a decent result in a tier 8 match, and it's by playing cautious, staying back, and using it a bit like an artillery. And now we've got the reload thing on here. It really does help for the tanks that are near you to know when you are reloading, because they'll know when to push, when to sort of, hopefully when to cover you and provide a bit of support. Now, I was making a bit of a hash of side scraping against the Cheeto, but I'm just waiting for the reload, and then fingers crossed I will hit him. There we go. And the KV2 is capable of pulling off some of the most extreme, fluky, lucky, jammy, whatever you want to call them, shots imaginable. I have done them where I've been moving at full speed, going down a slope, so, you know, upper side of 30 kilometers an hour, and just locked on, fired, and nuked whatever it was I hit. And yeah, it is capable of occasionally doing jammy things like that. So, you know, if you get the shot, you're on your way somewhere, for instance, Lake Town. You know, when you're going down one side of the lake and somebody on the other side gets spotted and you're wanting to get your position, instead of just stopping and shooting, just lock on and fire. And sometimes you might get a very pleasant surprise, and it is very satisfying when that happens. Now, we've basically stamped the enemy down to one medium tank. We're not entirely sure where he is, and we're now going to play a game of cat and mouse. I've got a feeling that he might be sneaking round to artillery, so that's why I'm heading off this way. But it doesn't matter as much now. I, at first, for a few seconds, thought he was trying to force a draw, and then I remembered that I think they've changed team destruction, haven't they? So that if this happens, and obviously that guy tries to hide and force a draw, I think it's the team that's destroyed the most tanks wins. Am I right in saying that? It's been a while since I've been in that situation, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they changed it to, although I could be wrong. But he's not gone after artillery, and I'm not sure whether it's the fact that I came swooping round and we can't find the guy, but Artie basically decides to follow me for a little bit, and I think it's like, he thought that guy was coming for me. He still could be. I'm going to move But yeah, we're still looking for him. So he's hiding somewhere. And we've been... I mean, if you've been watching the map, we've covered quite a bit of ground looking for him. But just keep an eye out for the battle messages. Where did they come up on here? Is it the is it just above the damage diagram on the bottom left? Where is he? Anybody going to see him? Keep an eye out in case he gets destroyed. Somebody spots him and just boom, one-shots him before he even pops up. I've seen that sort of happen before. But I don't know where he is. I've got a feeling he might be down in the bottom corner somewhere, bottom right-hand corner, as we're looking at the map, sort of southeastern. And that's, excuse me, I'll be glad when my throat's recovered fully. That's where I'm heading towards. And, oh, he's drowned himself. In fact, there he was. His symbol just disappeared over there. Bravo. So, yeah, he possibly was trying to force a draw and then remembered that he couldn't. But we still get a share of it. In fact, it will show us in the results screen at the end in the efficiency tab. But 2,000 damage, not bad. It's about my average damage in the KV2 with that. I've had some really good damage games, I've had some really bad damage games, but I've got my mark of excellence on it, so I'm quite happy with that one. Second class master in high caliber, and I did come top of the table, so that's always nice with 4 kills on top of that. So where was it? It was a 3001p if I remember rightly. There's that guy that I did 784 damage to, poor guy. There he was, self-destructed, and we got his tank's worth in XP and silver distributed amongst the surviving players on our team. Surviving players. Right, and this is the second and last replay of the review for you. Like I say, I don't know why I'd not done this one before. You know, it just sort of sits on its own. I've been down the other line. I think I just not got round to it, but this one's a tier 7 match, and it's Ruinberg Winter Standard Battle. Now, the packages in the store finish, I think, Wednesday morning, so hopefully there'll be something new going on. They've not updated the store yet, and I do realise I've been a little bit sort of silent on the Facebook side of things, so I do apologise for those of you that go on there, but obviously with Wargaming being very quiet, I've had nothing really to post and pass on, and it kind of seems a bit redundant posting my videos on there, although I think I might go back to it. So yeah, I do apologise, and I'll get back to that over the next couple of days. Now, I don't know whether to go into the town or not with a tier 7 in this. I think there's that many tanks that have gone into the town. I think I'd just would just be getting in the way of each other, so that's why I'm heading up towards this village. That way, and with it being a bit more open ground as well, I could possibly stay back, let other people spot for me, and again, like I said before, use myself as a bit of a direct line of sight artillery. And it's just a case of finding people, but there doesn't seem to be many that have come this way from the enemy team. Oh, somebody's spotted me. Oh, KV-85. Now, something you do have to remember with HE is that firing him into the tracks a lot of the time sets the shell off, and it will just splash. It'll knock the tracks off, and it'll do splash damage like that did. 231 because of the side armour on the KV-85, and obviously going through the tracks, spaced armour. Sometimes with the KV-85 and this gun it is hard to hit it where it isn't tracks. Some tanks obviously it's easier, they might have a bigger flat side above it, but there's not much with that, and this is not a particularly accurate gun. But that's him dealt with anyway. So where you can, try and put it not into the tracks but above the tracks or the side of the turret if you've got a good chance of penetrating that, or into the rear as well. In fact, what have I got my reload down to? I never actually checked there, I'll have to have a look. Now it's a bit risky, but the M6 isn't looking at me, so I can pop over, put a big hit into him, and again, that was just splash damage for 327. So, you know, that's why I kind of like this gun on the KV, and just feel that the 107's a bit redundant and better suited to the T150. It's got a better turret, it's got better turret traverse, it's just better suited to it. Was that about 18.59? I think it was. That's with Brothers in Arms, vents, a gun rammer, and a premium food item. And now, there's a Stug 3G round here. He's on low health. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Just wait for the aim. And again, I probably should have taken the shot when it was nowhere near fully aimed, and I probably would have had a better chance of hitting it. That seems to be the rule sometimes with the KV2 that I seem to forget and ignore. Don't aim, just fire. But the Stug got away, and I'm going to leave. I'm not going to chase him down, he's too fast for me, so I'm going to leave the medium tanks to try and go after him. And my plan was to pop around this corner and start putting shots down that street into whatever was at the bottom. But there's a heavy tank on his way up. There's the Stug. There's Artie. Can I hit Artie? It looks like he might be behind something. Yep, he is. So no, Artie's out the window, but there's a heavy tank coming up this street. And I think I checked and it was a 3000. Yep, 360H. Hopefully penn the side. And it certainly looked like I did, and that took him down. I'm just going to pop back into cover, wait for the reload. Keep an eye on that Stug, just in case he pulls off something miraculous and takes out the two tanks that are going for him. And I've got a T29, bit of a dodgy shot. I don't think it's going to pen, but again it should splash him for quite a bit. Yep, 376, I'm quite happy with that. Now if you'd have been using the armour piercing, that could have bounced, and then you would have got nothing. And that's, you know, another reason why I use the HE, because it doesn't bounce. And that target, again, it was only a little bit, but it's taken one of the guns off the battlefield, and now there's only one tank left, and it's an Oni. Now if I can get the side of him with 86, I'd say that's possibly a 50-50 of penning him. They are tricky to pen, and you don't want to put it into the front of something like an Oni or the OHO, is it tier 8, or even the OI, to be honest, at tier 6, with it being 150mm. The way that HE works, if it doesn't penetrate, it will do, I think it's about roughly half comes off straight away, and then it's so much damage per millimetre of armour. So the thicker the armour, the less you'll do. So if you can, try not to put it into the front of them. But if you can't still do it, you'll still probably hit them for 2, maybe 250 damage. But that was a 2000 damage game again, and that was a tier 7 match and a second class mastery. People do well in the KV2, a lot better than I do. But I came top of the table in a tier 7 match, so I wasn't top tier in that one, so that's very, very nice. But there you go, the KV2, the King of Derp. Hope that's helped people that are struggling with it, and yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. So as always, take care out there, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.